we did like half of it yesterday. Some of it was easy, some of it wasn't, right? So just like before, you kind of just have to grab whatever you can and ask extra questions wherever I get confusing. Let's do, we skipped 5 and 6, right? And we skipped 33 to the end, right? Let's go ahead and start with 33. So on 33, if I can get there. All right, so in Algebra 1, you weren't allowed to have a root in the denominator. So what you had to do was called rationalize the denominator. So same thing here. What's I really? Square root of -1, right? So I can't have a root in the denominator. I can't have a square root in the bottom. So I have to get rid of it. So in Algebra 1, you multiplied by the conjugate. So here we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to multiply by, do you guys care if it's black or red? Does it matter to you? Okay. I'm going to multiply by 1 minus I on the top and the bottom. If I do that, the i's will disappear in the denominator. I multiplied by what's called the conjugate. So 1 plus I multiply by 1 minus I. But what I do to one part of the fraction, I have to do to the other. You guys know that by now, right? Because it's really a 1. I didn't really change the problem, okay? So let's go ahead and do the denominator first because I want to make sure the i's went away. If the i's don't go away, I did something wrong and I'm wasting my time, okay? Isn't this a difference of squares backwards? Do you recognize that? If not, that's fine. We can just FOIL it, right? We get 1 minus I plus I, so 0, right? Minus I squared. It's a difference of squares backwards. The O and the I are going to cancel every time if you did it correctly. So some of you look like you don't believe me, so we'll just do it. So 1 minus I plus I minus I squared. Don't those cancel out? If you pick the correct conjugate, that's going to happen every time. That's the point. What just happened? The i's canceled out, right? So what's I squared again? I squared. -1. Two negatives make a positive, so I'm left with 1 plus 1, which is, what? 2? Okay. Let me start over. I can't have I in the bottom. Did I get rid of I in the bottom? Is there an I in the bottom anymore? Okay, so I did it. So now I feel confident that I probably did it right, so I'm going to go to the top. All right? This is just the distributive property. What's 2I times 1? 2I minus what? 2I squared. And what's I squared again? -1. Two negatives make a positive. So it's 2I plus 2. Okay? You have to have the I in the back. We kind of talked about that yesterday. So it's really 2 plus 2I over 2. All I did was I switched these around. It's a little nitpicky rule. Okay? If you remember from Algebra 1, if you had me at least, we drew a pizza or something. All of these have a what in common? A 2. So reduce by 2, divide by 2, and you get 1 plus I. I'm going to say all that again. Why is this not okay the way it was written? Because there's an I in the denominator. Can't have it. You can't have a root in the denominator. You have to multiply by, this is called a complex conjugate. Okay? If you look at the top of your notes, you see where it says complex conjugates, what to multiply by if I is in the denominator. Do you see that at the top of your notes? And it says A plus BI, A minus BI, right? So we have A plus BI here. We have something plus I. So I have to multiply by that exact same thing with a minus sign in between them.
So which is the correct way to write it? 2I plus 2 or 2 plus 2I?
This is the correct way right here. The I needs to come in the back. And then I had to reduce it, though. So really, my final answer is this one with I in the back.
If we have something, so if the denominator has I in it,
Yes.
it's 1 minus I,
Then you would multiply by,
1 plus I.
yes, on the top and the bottom. That's going to take some practice. I'm going to move on. Okay? What did I say? You can't have anything higher than I to the first, I to the 1, remember? Can't have anything higher than that. So we have a bunch of options on how to break this down. I to the 40. We know I squared. We have that memorized. What's I squared? -1, right? So couldn't I make this I squared a bunch of times? Right? That's not really the best, quickest way to do it, but you can. So go to the back of your paper if you still have space. Okay? If not, you can do it on here. It doesn't matter. I like to memorize from I to the 1 to I to the 4. I don't think it's that hard, and memorization isn't hard for me. If memorization is hard for you, just knowing I squared is always going to be okay. But I'll show you why I like I to the 4 instead. Okay? So I, we already said, was square root of -1, right? I squared was -1. So let's do I cubed. Okay? I cubed, isn't that the same as I squared times I to the 1? Isn't that still 3? Right? What was I squared again? -1 times I. So I cubed is -I. I don't know that I typically use that one, but I'm saying that to help you get to I to the 4. Okay? So if you didn't understand I cubed, it's okay. I to the 4 is helpful, though. Isn't I to the 4 the same as I squared times I squared? Because 2 plus 2 is 4. Are you okay there? What was I squared again? -1 times -1 is 1. So whenever I'm doing a problem like this, working with I squared is totally fine. You can do that as I squared a bunch and it's -1. That's fine. But people tend to be better with positives. So if you can memorize that I to the 4 is a +1, I think it's easier math, personally. The hard part to this is there's a million different ways to do it. You just have to pick a way you like. The easy part to this is there's a million different ways to do it. Pick whatever you want. I don't care. You don't have to do it my way. All right? I typically show you the quickest, easiest way. If you don't like it, tell me. I'll do a different one. All right? If this is I to the 40, I can't have anything higher than I to the 1. My final answer is either going to be I, -I, 1, or -1. You'll never have an answer that isn't one of those 4 when it's I to the something like this. It's not an option. Okay? So if this is I to the 40, I like for it to be I to the 4 to the something, because I to the 4 is easy for me. So if I take a power to a power, you remember algebra 1? What do you do with a power to a power? Multiply, very good. So if I have I to the 4, what's it need to be taken to? 10. Isn't this the same as I to the 40? Isn't that the same? Right? What did we say I to the 4 was again? 1. So what's 1 to the 10? 1. I to the 40 is 1. Okay? There's other ways to do it. I could have done I squared how many times? Like a lot, right? 20 times, right? You could do that if you freak out on a test or quiz. It's not great, I mean, but it'll get you the answer, right? Do you understand why I prefer I to the 4 instead of I to the 2? Because it's a +1, right? Let's do the next one. I to the 63. I prefer I to the 4 because I to the 4 is 1. That's easiest for me. Take out your calculator and see how many times 4 goes into 63 evenly. $15 times evenly, right? So what is I to the 4 to the 15? What's that really? I to the, what's 4 times 15 is what we're doing? 60, right? So how many more do I need? 3. So look at this again. Make sure you understand I've written the exact same thing. It just looks different. Okay? Does everybody understand this is I to the 60? Right? What do you do when you multiply with exponents? Add. Isn't that 60? And then 3 more is 63. Okay? I to the 4 is what? 1. So I have 1 to the 15, which is just 1, right? So basically you can ignore it now, right? And then I still just have that I cubed there. I can't have anything higher than I to the 1. If you can memorize those 4, I cubed is pretty easy. What is I cubed? Negative I, great. If you can't memorize it, you have to know what I squared is. That's not an option. What's I squared? Negative 1. So this is negative I, no matter how you want to do the problem. Oh yeah, I told you that, good. I want to make sure I said something right. So, go ahead, Sam. The answer is negative I to the first power. Whenever you're done with these, it's either going to be 1 or negative 1, I or negative I. If you get anything else, it's wrong, or you're not done. Yeah, I'm going to show you something, okay? With these, you can shorten your options, okay? If I wrote this at the top of my notes, you put it wherever you want. I to any even is only 2 choices. I to any odd is only 2 choices. If I have I to an even, right? Like I to the second, I to the 4, I to the 6, I to the anything even. Is it going to give me 1 or negative 1? Or is it going to give me I or negative I? Think about it. What's I squared? Negative 1, right? So if I have any I to evens, I don't have I's anymore. It's either a 1 or it's a negative 1. Do you get what I'm saying? You don't have to know this. It's just kind of helpful. So then I to any odd is going to have an I in it still, right? So it's I or negative I. Again, you don't have to know this to get the answer right. It's just kind of nice to check. So this is I to an odd. So I was supposed to get I or negative I. Let's do another one. Let's just do I to the 10. I to the 10. Put it wherever you want. You can do it any way you want to. You could write I squared how many times? 2, 4, 6, 8, 5 times. I could do that, right? That's negative 1 times negative 1, positive. Negative 1 times negative 1, positive. Times another negative 1. It's going to give me negative 1. You can do that. It's not super fast, though, but you can. I prefer I to the 4. How many times does 4 go into 10 evenly? 2. So isn't this really I to the 8? Right? Times how many more? Do you see how this is the exact same as that? This is really a 1. Well, what's 1 squared? 1. I don't care. What's I squared? Negative 1. Do it any way you want to. But your answer has to be I or negative I, 1 or negative 1. Let's see if you really understand it. Try this one. I to the 112. Am I going to do that to you so you can't write I to the second 50,000 times? Yes, I am.
I didn't even see the second one.
Sorry. The I to the 10 one? Is that where you're at?
No, like I didn't. You did it where you wrote 5 times, but I didn't see it.
Oh, okay. I'll do it again. You can do this if you want to. That's totally fine. But when you get to numbers like this, you probably don't want to, right? So I prefer I to the 4. Can you memorize it? Are you good at memorizing stuff? Okay. So I to the 4, we would have done twice because that's really I to the 8. Are you with me there? And then I needed 2 more. Okay. I to the 4 is really 1. And 1 squared is really 1, so I don't even need it. It's all just one big 1. And then I squared is negative 1. So 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. Is that okay? Okay. I totally made this one up, so I had to do it too. How many times does 4 go into 112 evenly? Oh, that was too easy. Whoopsie. I to the 4 to the 28. So this is 1 to the 28, so 1. Okay? Did I tell you guys what time we get out today? Crap. I don't know. We'll wing it. Okay. We'll see what's next. Let's do 39. If you've been confused so far, relax because this gets a little bit easier here, so you can kind of catch up again, okay? This says solve. If it says solve, what do they want you to do? Get x alone. X equals 5 or something, right? You can try to solve by factoring, right? I'm going to save you a little bit of time and let you know that either of these don't factor or they don't factor easily, okay? So with this one, yeah, I could pull out a 2 and I'm left with x squared plus 5, right? Does x squared plus 5 factor? Tell me no. So I'd get stuck anyway, okay? Whenever there's no b, see how I'm missing an x to the first? Whenever there's no b, bless you, you can do what I'm going to do right now. Pretend this said an Algebra 1 problem. Pretend it said that. Do you see how that's almost what it says? What would you guys tell me I would have done first? Subtract 10, divide by 2. Aren't I going to do the same thing, right? Get x alone, right? So subtract 10, divide by 2. Is everybody where I am and okay? In Algebra 2, anytime you can make it look like Algebra 1, you want to. Did I get x almost alone? Yeah, what's the only thing in the way now? The square. How do you undo a square? Square root. What you do to one side, you do to the other. In Algebra 1, you would have been like, I can't do it. And now you're like, I totally can do this now, right? What do you do with that negative? It comes out as an I. How many answers am I supposed to have? 2. I only have 1. What am I missing? Plus or minus. Back in Algebra 1, if you square root both sides of an equation, it's plus or minus. That's why I pointed out to you the other day that there should be 2 answers, because here's where people forget and they only have 1, and that's your hint to remember that you needed a plus or minus. Is that okay? That's our answers. Plus or minus I root 5. When that's 2 answers and it's done. Is that okay? It's an imaginary number, so you can't really check it, but it's right. Let's try this one. Again, you can try to factor if you want to, bless you. But it's not going to, it might have a GCF, but it's not going to factor the way that we need it to. So there's no b, so get x alone. What's the first thing we deal with? The 6, the 72, or the x squared? The 72, what do? Subtract it, then what? Divide by 6, so x squared is equal to negative 12, right? Square root, so x equals plus or minus square root of negative 12. And we have to break it down. The I comes out. This is a 4 and a 3, right? So what's the 4 come out as? So 2i root 3. The 4 comes out as a 2. The negative 1 comes out as the I. And the square root of 3 is still the square root of 3. Ask me a question. See what time we get out. We get out at 2:20. Oh, we got 3 minutes. Okay. Let me show you how to do the last one because it's actually pretty easy. Find x and find y, right? So what we're going to do is set the imaginary numbers equal and the non-imaginary numbers equal. So what do you think the imaginary numbers would be? The ones with i's in them, right? So 2yi is equal to negative 6i. And then everything else, x plus 1 and 3, are equal as well. Do you guys understand what I did? I pulled the imaginary parts equal, and I put the non-imaginary, the real parts equal. So on this one, what's x equal to? That's super easy. 2, done, right? On this one, I want to find y. What's in the way of y being alone? I and 2. So divide by them, right? So what's what's y equal to? The i's cancel. Negative 3. That's it. You know that